From Chapel Hill to Hell's Kitchen to finding a little slice of heaven in the home of American golf, we chop it up with culinary queen Leigh Orleans next on Paradise in the Pines. Welcome to Paradise in the Pines, a podcast about the people, places, and stories that make this the home of American golf. Brought to you by the Pinehurst, Southern Pines, Aberdeen Area Convention and Visitors Bureau. Welcome to Paradise in the Pines, and we have with us celebrity chef Leigh Orleans from Hell's Kitchen. First time we've ever had anybody from Hell's Kitchen. Not that we have that many in the Pinehurst area, but you were from Hell's Kitchen. How in the heck do you even get on that show?
When I was in culinary school, I got a DM from one of the casting directors, and I honestly thought it was spam.
Yeah, right.
But I kind of looked into who they were and realized it was real. And I'm the kind of person that thinks that you should say yes to opportunities when they come your way. So I shot my shot and they picked me.
I'm sure you had watched the show before. What did you think about the show even before you got involved with it?
Oh, yeah. I grew up watching Hell's Kitchen. I mean, I think it started airing when I was in middle school. And even in culinary school, I'd never worked in a professional kitchen. I just wanted to be a private chef the whole time. And I knew that Hell's Kitchen was a show that was for line cooks to compete against each other.
Yeah.
And I felt incredibly unprepared. I mean, it was an intense show with a skill set that I was unfamiliar with, but if they wanted to give me the opportunity, I wasn't going to say no.
Like they say, I mean, you want to do things that make you feel a little bit uncomfortable.
For sure.
When you first got to the set and you're like, was it just like, I have no idea what's going to happen? Did they give you any kind of prep whatsoever? I mean, how does that all work when you're getting ready for a show like that where it's made for TV, but it's reality TV too?
Definitely. I think the unique thing about Hell's Kitchen as compared to maybe some of the other cooking shows that we watch today, like Next Level Chef is another Gordon Ramsay show. I think on Hell's Kitchen, they really want you as off your game as you could possibly be. You're sleep deprived, you're sleeping on set, like with contestants that you just met in dorm rooms, basically. You never know what's about to happen, ever. And we actually had to quarantine for 10 days in a hotel room without the key on the front end because it was of the, time of our lives. So you kind of come in with this Stockholm syndrome, like I'm going crazy. And then they just throw you onto the camera and they're like, ready to go.
Now, when you were challenged with whatever culinary thing it might be, did they give you any kind of heads up? How much of it was surprise?
Always a surprise.
Really? Wow, okay.
There was always a break. They would explain the rules, and then on TV, they shout, ready, go, and it looks like everyone's running. Their lawyer runs in and says, raise your hand if you understood the rules, and then everyone raises their hand, and that's the only little amount of heads up that you actually get that's not shown. You
said you got a DM to get you introduced to the show. Now, how much experience did you have at that point in your life from the culinary side?
Almost none. I have a background in finance. I was working in a bank, and when I married into the military, that requires a lot of moving. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to stop trying to build a book of business in the finance world and just go after my hobby. So there was a culinary school in Savannah, Georgia, is where we were stationed at the time. And I thought it was just kind of going to be a fun side gig, but really none. They reached out in that point in my life. And I flew to LA the month after I graduated to film.
That's incredible. It's interesting because Dan, our Destination Storyteller, is behind the camera there, went to Savannah College of Art and Design. So we'll get into your background a little bit. We'll come back to Hell's Kitchen. Let's kind of build your background and how you got to that point and how you got to today and being a military wife, because that's obviously very important to folks that live in Southern Pines and the Pinehurst area. Let's go back we're fellow Virginians. You're from Alexandria, Virginia.
Yes,
I'm from Virginia Beach, so different parts of the state, but fellow Virginian, always good to have that here. What was it like growing up in Alexandria? Because I would imagine from the culinary side, I mean, it's a global international melting pot, a great place to grow up.
Yeah.
Talk about that experience.
I had so much exposure to, we lived like a 20-minute drive to DC, and that's where my father worked. So we were in the city all the time eating, whether it was Thai or Ethiopian food. There's just so much exposure. And then on top of that, my classmates, like my best friend's family was Persian. So I'd go over to her house for after school snack, and it wasn't what my parents were cooking. It was just this constant exposure to new flavors and cuisines, and it definitely influenced how I cook today.
How did you transition from hey, this is cool, I like trying other food, to hey, I want to try and make that?
I was a chubby little kid, so my mom wanted to put my sister and I in cooking classes when we were young to kind of familiarize ourselves with healthier foods, and we'd go to, the farmer's market on the weekends and pick up vegetables. And then when I was in college, I decided to become a vegetarian, as one does at that age. And the dining hall does not adequately always kind of provide that kind of diet lifestyle choice. So figured I needed to.
Oh, my college culinary experience was the sheet pizza that came in squares and the manufactured burgers that you didn't know what it was made of. But anyway, living in DC, awesome experience growing up. I remember you mentioned Ethiopia, and I got to tell you this quick story. I don't know if the restaurant's still there. It's called the Dancing Crab. It's in like Maryland, like Chevy Chase area. And I was in college, went to James Madison, and so we went to this place and we ordered some calamari. And we were talking about hot food, and I told the chef, I said, you can't make it too hot. And so he came back with this calamari. I was in the bathroom within 3 minutes. I was like, some sort of spice, which I'm sure you're probably familiar with. He was like, okay, I got you.
Right. Yeah, you can't test people with perhaps, an American chef.
Right.
You can say, yeah, make it spicy, but anywhere else, you're really risking a run to the bathroom for sure.
So from Alexandria, Virginia, did you transition to go to Chapel Hill from there? So how did you end up down in North Carolina, in our neck of the woods at University of North Carolina? By the way, Melissa, our staff that you met, she's a big Tar Heel. I'm a big Duke guy. I'm just going to be completely upfront with you. But yeah, you're cool. You're cool. No animosity here. But tell us how you ended up in Chapel Hill.
Yeah, I knew I wanted to go to business school. Chapel Hill has a great program at Keenan Flagler. Virginia has a lot of great in-state schools. I think I was just really ready to experience something else.
Yeah.
And when I visited Chapel Hill, the way that I described the community there as compared to some of the other universities that I toured was, I won't name names, but perhaps like another college I toured, the vibe was like, oh, you're so lucky you got in. And I visited Chapel Hill and the vibe was, oh, we're so glad you're here. Like, we're so grateful that you're considering us. And it was that Southern hospitality.
You're not talking about Duke, are you?
Oh, definitely not. No. I'm not talking about Duke.
Okay.
I didn't tour Duke. I didn't want to go.
Okay.
But, they're not known for their business school, right? Maybe.
Yes. Actually,
Yeah,
Tom
they
Pastor,
are.
the president of the Pinehurst Resort, went to the business school at the Fuquay Business School.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay. See, I just, clearly I had my mindset on
You're
one
a Tar
shade
Heel.
of blue.
You're definitely a Tar Heel.
Yeah.
So how much were you involved in culinary in North Carolina? How did that kind of evolve from, growing up in Alexandria to Chapel Hill? You were a vegetarian then, so.
Yeah, my
maybe not
roommate
so much.
and I actually moved off campus sophomore year so that we could have a proper kitchen to work in. Our freshman year, we were trying to cook shrimp scampi in the dorm little shared kitchen. I remember we didn't have a ladle, so we used the tomato cans to serve everybody.
Right.
It was absurd, but we've always loved to cook. She actually is in the culinary world now as well, and she was an econ major, so we made our ways here.
Yeah, there you go. And then from there, transitioning to you went to the Culinary Institute of America. Talk about your adventure and the journey on the culinary side after you left Chapel Hill and how you ended up down in Savannah.
Yeah, so I graduated and moved to Charlotte because banking mecca. It's a great place to be for that. And that was kind of, I met my husband. He was up at West Point when we were in college. So we dated distance and we were still dating. And it was about time that we kind of lived in a similar space. But he was about to be stationed in Savannah and I couldn't bring my banking job with me. So I left and I had no clue what I was going to do. I was trying to find a similar job in, what my experience was in Savannah. And I told myself if I didn't find a job that felt like a really good fit in 6 months, I was just going to go to culinary school.
Wow.
And just say, you know what, I don't know what I'm doing. And that sounds like fun. Why not? So I went to Savannah Culinary Institute at the Technical College near the base there. And I honestly had an amazing experience. The professors, all my chefs were really, really talented people.
How did that expand? I mean, learning different culinary, different styles, things like that. So what was the most important thing about that experience that took you to maybe the next level?
Honestly, I think it was the opportunity to play. You have all of these resources at your disposal. I loved my master's experience at the Culinary Institute of America. That is a really, really big school, and they have a lot of resources. But
now that's in New York.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. One of the main campuses in New York. But being in a technical college, it was such a smaller group that whenever I wanted like one-on-one help with something, or if there was something very specific I wanted to learn, I had the opportunity to ask, our chefs, the professors, and say like, hey, I've never shucked an oyster. Can we do that one day? Right. And they would order oysters for us to practice on. That's not an experience that you would maybe get at a larger university in that setting. So it was really formative. I learned a lot. And I think it really helped me go into Hell's Kitchen with the right mindset, because our exams were, okay, these are your ingredients, make something, or, this is the like health profile of your client, like build a meal around that. So you had to constantly be creative with your food. And that's what a culinary competition is.
So let's go back to Hell's Kitchen. So the obvious question is encountering Gordon Ramsay. I can't imagine, we see him on air and, he has this persona. I mean, what's he like in real life?
He's amazing. I mean, he was an incredible mentor. I'm sure at one point he had those like anger feelings, like were very real for him. But I think as a father and, as he's had a little bit more experience under his belt, he can get mad, but I don't think it's from a vindictive place. He just wants you to implement what he told you to do, like any boss does. Yeah. And for that particular show, he's allowed to express it in a certain way. And
and in TV, I mean, it's all about telling a story. It's all about drama. It's all about conflict. Mm-hmm. How do you overcome conflict? I mean, making people cry. I mean, did he ever put you to a point where you're like, what the hell am I doing? Or like, what am I doing here? Does he? And how much does he preface that? Like, hey, I'm going to totally humiliate you. I'm going to break you down.
Oh, there's no preface.
No?
It's just
happens. Raw.
Yeah. Okay. I remember maybe day 4, and there's an episode per day, pretty much is how filming works. I think he kind of left me alone the first day or 2 because I was the greenest for sure. And that was clear in, I think, how I was carrying myself and just like my background that he was familiarized with. Day 4, I remember very vividly, I was like, oh, he's trying to make me cry right now. In the middle of dinner service, he was yelling at me, or he had said something to me, and I didn't recognize he was talking to me because there's so much stimulation happening.
Yeah.
You're in this kitchen, there's a lot going on.
Crew and everybody else behind the camera.
Well, the crew is hidden. It's like a one-way mirror, so you can't see all the cameras. Okay. You're just like really in your little world.
So I can see where psychologically you feel like you're alone and vulnerable.
So he says something to me and I don't respond. And he starts screaming. He's like, do you think your military husband would be ignoring one of his superiors? Like yelling at me. I was so caught off guard. And I remember turning to the woman next to me. I was like, talk about literally anything. Just get my mind off of that. Like, I don't have time to cry right now. Like trying to focus. And otherwise, I think I kept it together pretty well. It was always very surreal. If he screamed at me, I was like, this looks just like the TV show,
Yeah. Now, you said you were rather green, so were your teammates or the competitors, were they helpful? Were they highly competitive? They're like, let's bury this chick. And how was the camaraderie with the other chefs that were competing and then the ones on your team?
It was definitely a story arc that I'm not sure is like really adequately, you can't show everything that happens in this period on TV. Sammy Tarantino, she was probably the strongest female competitor on our team, and she ended up getting 3rd, but she went the furthest of the females. I remember very vividly at the beginning, she was snappy with me about everything. If I did anything, I was doing it the wrong way. If I asked a question, it was a stupid question. And I think like 4 or 5 days in, she realized I actually was talented, regardless of the fact that I did have to ask a lot of questions because I had no clue what I was doing.
Right.
But I caught on quick, and I could hold my own when the time came to it. So by the end, we were great friends. I loved cooking with her. I learned so much from her. But it was kind of like that with a lot of the chefs. You have to earn respect in that kind of setting.
How much did that experience change you?
Oh my gosh, so much.
Yeah.
I mean, not only did it make me a stronger chef, it definitely made me a stronger person. I feel like particularly in the kitchen setting, there's not as much time for niceties in that profession as there are maybe in others, right? So I was working a job at the Masters last month.
You're going to ask about that, yeah.
And I hired a local sous chef, just a young girl in culinary world, to come help me out. And one of my employers kind of overheard how I was talking to her, and she was like, "You were a little snippy with her." And I was like, "Well, if she didn't work in kitchens, I would have been nicer."
Right.
But when it's time to, plate the food, it's game time. Like it's all about efficiency. However, is the fastest way to say something, and that's what it is. And then at the end, you hug, you make up, you have a drink together, whatever it is. But Hell's Kitchen definitely kind of gave me that thick skin to go into the industry with that mindset.
I was doing research for this and read where Gordon actually gave you a black jacket, which only goes to the top 5, and you were 6th. Mm-hmm. So what's the story behind that, and why did that happen?
Yeah, at the time, we didn't know I was going to get 6th, but it was rare that he gave 6 people a black jacket. It's a 3 challenge day where traditionally you'd wake up and just do one challenge. There were 7 of us left, and every challenge was supposed to whittle someone out. Maybe there was 8 of us. Regardless. First challenge, 2 people get a black jacket. Yeah, there were 7 of us. 2 people got a black jacket. Then the second challenge, 2 more. The third challenge, there was only 1 spot left, and I had already mentally, admittedly resigned. Like I was like, there's no way. The 2 gentlemen I'm standing next to are so talented. I am just thrilled I made it this far.
Yeah.
But I made a dish that meant a lot to me, and I felt like I was just kind of trying to convey like my way of cooking and how I like to eat food on a plate, and I think that resonated with him. And whatever it was, he chose to give me the black jacket first. Actually, my jaw hit the floor.
Wow, that's cool.
And then Ryan O'Sullivan, who ultimately ended up winning the season, he got the next one.
Do you still stay in contact with people that you shared the experience with?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, definitely trauma bonding, right?
Yeah.
We had a really, really intense experience together. And especially, I mean, it was a 1.5 years before the show aired. So that 1.5 years, we were all like on pins and needles waiting to see how we'd all be portrayed, how it would kind of go. And during that time, we were all really close. Now, we're all busy. We have a lot going on. Everyone's really successful, but we're still friends for sure. You
mentioned the show didn't air for another 1.5 years. How much of it, is it 90% or half of it was on the cutting room floor? Was it pretty much what you expected once the production was finally rolled out and on air on network TV? Do you feel like you were portrayed in a good light?
Yeah, I feel like I got lucky's the wrong word, because I feel like I was portrayed accurately. So it may be fair. Fair is nicer. I don't think everybody got the same break that I did. There always has to be a villain in that kind of show, and sometimes that has to be fabricated. Sometimes it's real, but my goal for the whole experience, because I knew that I wasn't, candidly, I did not go in thinking I was going to win. I just didn't want to embarrass myself. I wanted to stay composed and I wanted to learn. And I think that came across, is that I just wasn't there for the drama. I was just there to do a good job. And the
exposure, I mean, obviously it's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, regardless of how it looks, it's something to put on the resume and go, hey, I was on Hell's Kitchen. It's pretty cool. With Gordon Ramsay, does he have an open door policy? It's like, even though you haven't been on the show for a while, I mean, you still can pick up the phone, email him, text him, go, hey, or does he reach out to you and go, hey, how are you doing?
He's an incredibly busy man. And I mean, at this point, he's done so many shows. There are so many people who have come through his little family of television, but I know he keeps tabs on us.
He hadn't forgotten about you. Come on.
No, I know he hasn't, but I know he keeps tabs. And he's a busy man though.
Now, I understand there may be another opportunity with Food Network or another network show. Can you talk about that at all?
I can't yet, but I do have another show coming out in the fall. I can't say what it is, but it is on Food Network. And I'm really excited about that. Yeah. If
you've seen Chris Prieto on Food Network, the Barbecue King, I think that's his name. Dan, I think that's his name on the barbecue. He's the headliner for our Pinehurst Barbecue Festival.
Very cool.
So Barbecue Nerd. That's right. If you go to Instagram, Barbecue Nerd is from Texas, Puerto Rican by being raised in Puerto Rico. So
you gave him a
we
promotion.
did. We made a Barbecue King, but I mean, and he's got a barbecue place up in Nightdale, which is outside of Raleigh. But when you're here for Labor Day weekend, we need to take it to the Pinehurst Barbecue Festival, and you need to check out that culinary scene. It's pretty cool. But
Yeah,
but Chris is
definitely.
on Food Network, so we hope that show works out for you on Food Network. You mentioned going down to Augusta for the Masters. So talk about how that experience came about, and do you have any kind of golf background, or how did you get the opportunity?
Yeah, again, social media is an amazing place, but to answer the golf background question first, being a very driven child, I knew I wanted to work in finance my whole life. Like both of my parents do. So I was like, okay,
Yeah.
of course, that's what I'm going to do. And they were like, okay, well, if you want to work in finance, you got to take golf lessons.
Right.
So
Most deals are made on the golf course.
exactly. So
So that's what I tell my staff, and they're like, "Oh, you're just out playing golf." It's like, no, you don't understand. I mean, we're talking business.
it's part of the culture for
Right.
sure. So they made sure that I knew how to play tennis and golf and softball, just so I didn't humiliate myself one day potentially. My sister ended up hitting me in the head with a driver. She probably doesn't.
Oh my gosh.
Doesn't want me advertising that, but I was a good horror story for the safety lessons for the rest of the golf games.
Right.
But yeah, and then I golfed for a gym class at Chapel Hill.
Okay.
I've always enjoyed it, and it's something that I still continue to try and
Wow,
do.
okay.
I'm terrible, but
Well, you're in
but
the
I
home
find it
American
fun.
golf. You got to take it up.
Yeah, definitely,
And,
definitely.
So, how did you get the opportunity to work at the Masters?
Yeah, I can't say who my client is, but I don't. The culinary world can be really small. They reached out to a pretty big celebrity chef, and her team said, oh, she doesn't do stuff like that. So they turfed it to another big chef in LA, and she was like, I don't want to come to the East Coast, but she knew from social media and connections and all that I was out here. So she was like, you should talk to them, see if you're a good fit. And I've been with them for 2 years. I'll be there next year as well. It's a lot of fun.
So, as a celebrity chef, how does that work logistically? You can't name the client, but how many people did you serve? What did you serve? And then how was it received?
It was received great. Everyone, they did bring me back the second year, and I'll be there next year. So they
Awesome.
they had to like it at least a little bit. But
Yeah.
I usually cook for about 20 people a night, and it's 20 different people every night. And then the menu rotates. So I am a big fan of Eastern Mediterranean cuisine, kind of like the Levant region. So I don't want to push that envelope too hard, particularly in this setting, but I kind of try and bring some of those flavors in. So I did a tahini Caesar salad a handful of the nights, followed by a za'atar spiced galette, which is kind of like a Middle Eastern hyssop, but like more familiar to us. It tastes like thyme, with a little bit of sesame in there, and did like a caramelized onion. So like we're familiar with caramelized onions.
Yeah.
I add the za'atar. It's like those crossovers.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
then I did a harissa marinated grilled prawn on filet mignon, and some urfa biber pine nut dressed
Wow.
frites. So just like
Pretty
kind of trying to
exotic, yeah.
play with new
But
ingredients.
fun, yeah.
Yeah.
Being creative.
I want it to be not so new that it makes people nervous, but it's fun for me to be able to introduce my guests to new culinary flavors.
I will tell you that I can guarantee your client was not Scotty Scheffler, who won the Masters. So they always have the champions dinner. And I remember when I saw that, it was just looked like this little menu, and it had the Masters logo, and it was Scotty Scheffler's champions dinner. And so it was like sliders, wings. It's like, I sent that to a couple of my board members. I said, if you take the logo off, it's a menu from Chili's. And so it's like, okay, Scotty wasn't eating that stuff.
Scotty, you can call me next time.
Right. But you won't be serving wings to Scott. I mean,
No, I
You
would
gotta-
do. If I did serve wings, they would be
They would be
special.
dang good.
Right.
You mentioned like some of the international flavors, and you've gotten a chance to travel the world. Talk about some of the influences you've had, locations in, like, say, in South Africa. Man, I didn't know they had this, and I'm going to incorporate this in some sort of culinary programming I'm doing, and other parts of the world that are big influences for you.
Yeah, definitely. Anytime I travel, whether it's to a city in the United States or internationally, it's hard to not bring that kind of like influence back into my food. I studied abroad in both South Africa and Spain while I was at Chapel Hill. Spain a little bit longer, so I still am like a huge fan of those flavors. I actually do a bunch of pop-up dinners at Sante in Southern Pines right around the corner here.
Where I was going to ask you about that. You just did that recently, yeah.
Yeah, so I think the most recent one we did had a little bit of that Spanish influence. We were doing like Spanish focused wines, so I was kind of pulling from my experiences in Spain and some of those flavors. And then South Africa, like I ate bugs for the first time, but I'm not doing that in my menus yet, but it just kind of shows you that you can really like do new creative things with food. Like ants apparently taste a lot like lemongrass. And so a lot of cultures and cuisine will imply that ingredient in that way. And you know, like time in France, and then my husband and I, when we were dating, when we graduated, we spent a month in Southeast Asia. So those foods are still some of my favorite in the world.
Yeah, that's incredible. You mentioned your husband, military, and we can't divulge too much, but I mean, that obviously brought you to this very much military influenced area. You've been here about 2 years.
Yes.
Talk about moving here. Where'd you move from, and what has been your experience here in 2 years in the Pinehurst area?
Yeah, I mean, it's been great. You know, I love North Carolina. Obviously, I chose to come here for undergrad, and I'm happy to be back in the Tar Heel State.
I hear you.
Don't fight me too much on that.
Oh, it's okay.
But yeah, we moved. We were briefly at Fort Rucker in Alabama, and I think it's been renamed since then. I don't know if that one. I know they're changing all the time these days.
Fort Bragg is Fort Bragg.
Fort Bragg is not, once again. And before that, we were in Savannah. So Savannah, Alabama, and now here it's our third duty station. Maybe for another 6 months, 12 months. Who knows? You never know with the military, but it's been great. You know, I love warm weather.
Yeah.
Anything that's not like Fort Drum, or my brother-in-law has been up in Alaska. So, you know, I don't need that in my future.
We were talking before we recorded this podcast, and you say you travel a lot. So you had a chance in 2 years to really kind of get around our area and kind of experience some restaurants. We can certainly have some recommendations. Chef Warren is good. Chef Warren's on our board, so we highly recommend that. Ironwood, Mark Elliott's great with Elliott's on Linden. Ashton's here in town. But talk about, you know, aside from maybe doing this Food Network show, you travel quite a bit. So are you basically a contract chef, or how do you make money basically? And you know, what do you do to kind of keep cooking, if you will?
Yeah, for sure. I do events mostly. So whether the event is a whole vacation for you and your family, or it's a wellness retreat, or it's a one-off birthday party, I'm a contracted chef, just like you said, basically. So I work with my clients to kind of talk to them about what they like to eat, if they have any dietary restrictions or preferences, and then we develop a menu together. I'll send them sometimes events I've done in the past, those menus, or, you know, I really love creating menus. So I often kind of like will pitch things, but at the end of the day, I want to make sure that my clients are getting like the protein that they're dreaming of, or like if they have like an absolute favorite food in the world, I want to include that. But like I said, I kind of want to push the envelope a little bit and then introduce them to new flavors. So whether that's locally here in Pinehurst, Southern Pines, Raleigh, or traveling, you know, next week I'm flying to Nantucket, and then the week after that I'll be in Sonoma County. So all over the place. Yeah,
that's awesome. Well, I got to ask you this. I mean, you've talked about all these different exotic dishes and great flavors that you're creating. So when you're at home, or you're like eating a bowl of cereal, or you're getting Wingstop, you're going to a food truck rodeo, what does Leigh make at home?
Honestly,
or does your husband cook?
Oh, bless him. He's a good cook. Don't get me wrong, but I'm so controlling in the kitchen that he doesn't have a lot of opportunities to. But it's just because I love it so much. Like I think maybe because I don't cook in restaurants, you know, I think it's a pretty common stereotype of the restaurant chef to go home and make a PB&J for dinner. Yet I have not tired of it. You know, I love it. I want to do something different every day. I rarely walk into the grocery store for myself with a plan. I just buy whatever looks good, and then
almost like Hell's Kitchen. It's like you get the ingredients, like you challenge yourself, and okay, let's make something cool and fun and maybe different. Yeah,
like today, you know, I said I was going out of town, and I have quite a bit of produce still in my fridge. So the last several meals have been about looking at my fridge and being like, okay, what do I need to either like make something that I can freeze, or like eat in a certain way with what I have. Today for lunch, I had a bunch of like cucumbers and avocados that you can't cook and freeze very well. So I made spring rolls because that's a good vessel and a quick, easy carb. So, you know, just kind of trying to play with what I have on hand.
I'm not going to sit here and list a bunch of ingredients and ask you to like create a dish. But say I go to Harris Teeter tonight, I go buy some chicken breast.
Yeah.
What would be like, hey, Phil, you should try this, because this is really kind of a crazy thing to try and do with a piece of chicken.
Honestly, I think maybe not necessarily a dish, but something that I think most home cooks are doing wrong with chicken is they're cooking it too cold. It needs to be much closer to room temperature when it hits the pan, and you're probably overcooking it. You should probably pull it off at like 158, maybe 160 degrees, and then those last 5 degrees will be the like food safe temperature for you. But a meat thermometer is a really useful tool.
I was just going to ask you about that. I got one of them. It's invaluable. And so, don't take the chicken out of the refrigerator and put it right in the pan. Let it sit out. I think people are afraid of one.
Salmonella, right?
Salmonella, they're scared to death of that. And, and same thing with overcooking. It's probably like, if it's a little bit pink, it's probably, for pork and chicken.
It'll be fine. And honestly, pork these days, like, from what I understand, people don't get trichinosis anymore. That's, you can undercook your pork a little bit. Mom, no, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, when I'm cooking for myself and my clients, I leave my chicken out for like an hour before it goes in the pan. People get really scared, but they're like, "Oh my gosh, this tastes so much better than when I cook chicken."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Yeah, and you're not sick."
Right.
Crazy.
Exactly. Well, very cool. Well, how can people get in touch with you? Obviously, people are DMing you to be on Hell's Kitchen and Food Network. So, but website, how can people get in touch with you if they want to hire you to be their personal chef for, maybe just a couple or a big event?
Yeah, don't hesitate to reach out. My Instagram is _chef, Leigh, Chef Leigh. And my website is chefleigh.me. Easy enough.
Awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure. Absolute pleasure to meet you and to talk to you and to learn more about the culinary side. Best of luck with Hell's Kitchen if you get another opportunity there and with the Food Network show.
Thank you.
We look forward to seeing you. And thanks so much. You're the biggest celebrity we've had on this podcast for sure. So just keep cooking and best of luck to you in the future.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
If you want to learn more about tourism in Moore County, the home of American golf, go to our website, which is homeofgolf.com. If you want to watch our videos, go to our YouTube channel, which is Home of American Golf. If you like this podcast, tell your friends about it. Get them to download it. It's called Paradise in the Pines, and we'll see you next time.